In this movie, you'll learn about various ways to animate text created with the TextPlus feature. TextPlus is relatively new to 3ds Max and can only be used in 3ds Max 2016 Extension 1 or newer. Using TextPlus in combination with animation presets, you can create and reuse interesting animations on words, paragraphs, or letters. Start or reset 3ds Max. On the Customize Units setup, make sure the display units are set to generic and that the system units are set to inches. This is the default setup. In its simplest form, you create a TextPlus entity much the same way you did with the old text tool, with a simple click in the viewport. From there, you can change the body of text by editing it in the command panel. This is where the similarities stop, as TextPlus has quite a bit more functionality to offer. For a detailed overview of the feature, watch the tutorial named Using TextPlus Overview on this channel. Here, though, you will concentrate on animation features. For that, start by giving the text you created a bit of volume by changing the extrude value. To animate text, you can of course enable Auto Key mode and start moving or rotating the text element. This, however, would act on the object as a whole. If you want further control, such as animating individual words or characters, then you can use animation presets. Animation presets are stored on disk and then loaded on objects you plan to animate. You can also use embedded offset controls to prevent objects from doing the same thing at the same time. Animation presets are covered in detail in the tutorial named Using Animation Offset Controls and Presets, found on this channel. They're actually easy to create and use. In a nutshell, you animate an object's transforms and/or modifiers, and then you store that animation that you later load on another object. Try it out. In the perspective view, create a box that's about as big as one of the existing letters. In the hierarchy panel, center the object's pivot point. This will help with the rotations in a moment. Move the box up on the Z-axis. About 80 units should do. Next, you'll animate it to move down while rotating. Enable Auto Key mode and go to frame 40. Move the box back down and rotate it a bit on the X-axis. Do not worry about the rotation amount. You'll adjust that in a moment. Right-click and go to the Curve Editor. Click to highlight the Z position track. Select the first keyframe and set its tangent to linear. Repeat with the X rotation track. With the X rotation track highlighted, select the second keyframe. Set its value to 720. That's 2 full rotations before it settles down. Close the Curve Editor, disable Auto Key mode, and test your animation. To use the same animation on your text object, you first need to save it to disk. With the box still selected, go to Animation, Presets, Create Preset. In the dialog that appears, enable Transform and disable Modifiers. You didn't animate any modifiers in this case. In the Show group, disable all options except Animated. Select the remaining filtered controllers and click OK. In the Modify panel, give the animation a name such as Tumble, and then click the Save Preset button. Once that's done, you are ready to apply the animation to the text. In fact, you can even delete the box. You don't need it anymore. Select the text again and choose Animation, Presets, Load Preset. Note the Tumble option in the preset list. Select it and click OK. Scrub the animation to see the effect. You may want to center the pivot point on the TextPlus entity as well. Of course, the animation currently is global to the text object. Make sure it is selected and go to the Modify panel. Note the new modifier named Tumble that is applied to the object. Go down the stack to the TextPlus level and expand the animation rollout if it's currently collapsed. Note the Separate option. It is set by default to Object. Expand the drop-down to see the other options, and set it to Character. You'll notice two things. First, the text is duplicated, and the duplicates are now children objects of the original. Second, and more importantly, the animation is now transferred to the duplicated letters, only it is running in the wrong direction. This happens when the text element and the original object used to create the animation have different orientation axes. Fortunately, this can be reassigned at the TextPlus level by choosing an up axis, in this case Z. Scrub the animation. You may need to extend the animation length a bit. At this point, you can hide the original TextPlus element and deal only with the animated characters. They are entities in their own right and can be edited as such, for example by centering their pivot points. Animation presets are stored in your project folder under Scene Assets, Animations, Presets. To experiment more, copy the presets you downloaded for this tutorial to that folder and give them a test drive. Reset 3ds Max and try them out. Here's the effect of an electric shock applied to text. It is based on an animated noise modifier. Here's another example based on modifiers. This time with bend and stretch modifiers, combined to create a drunken effect. Let's go back exploring the other options of separating text. Reset 3ds Max and maximize the front view. Create a TextPlus element and change the body of text to read Chippewa Falls Motor Speedway. Feel free to use your own titles and play with the extrude bevel options. You can even assign material if you like to, and set the view to display in shaded mode, F3. Load onto the text the animation preset named Speed that you downloaded for this tutorial. It is based on a simple X position transform and a skew modifier simulating a hard brake. If you want this logo to spread over 2 lines, you have a couple of choices. One way would be to simply edit the body of text and use the Enter key at the right spot. This, however, creates a paragraph break that can be significant when the animation is applied. Back to that in a moment. In object mode, and as discussed earlier, the animation is applied globally to the text entity. In character mode, also as you have learned, characters are separated as children objects and animated as designed. In word mode, and as you might guess, text entities are separated by the words that make out the phrase, in this case 4 sub-elements, which leaves us with line and paragraph. Before we get to that, a word of caution. When switching from one mode to another, always do so at frame 0. If you don't, the sub-elements may shift in space. For example, if I switch from word to line at frame 25, and then go back to frame 0, you'll notice that the sub-entities are now off-screen. If that happens, simply go back to frame 0 and choose the proper mode again. So, line and paragraph. If you test them out, they'll have the same behavior. This is because of the paragraph break you forced earlier. Remove the paragraph break again to go back to a single line. Now switch the mode from point to region and set the region width to 200. You're back to the same display as a moment ago, except that you're now dealing with one paragraph made of 2 lines instead of 2 single-line paragraphs. And this makes a difference when you test out the different modes. Choose the mode you like best and set the perspective view for a more interesting shot. You should now have a good grasp of how to animate TextPlus entities. It's your turn now to come up with your own ideas, which you will hopefully share with us.